All right, welcome everybody. We're going to go ahead and get kicked off. It is the top of the hour. So today we're going to be talking about some of the trends that we're seeing in service management and enterprise and IT service management. And we're really going to focus on five that we see really accelerating in 2026. So very quickly, my name's Andrew Graff. I lead product here at Team Dynamics, and I am joined by Bill Clayman. So, Bill is an expert in IT, AI, and a very forward-thinking individual. Bill, you want to say hello to everybody?
Hello, everybody. I'm just trying to contain my excitement. We had a pre-call, Andrew, and holy cow, you had a great analogy. All the irons in the fire, and while so many irons are still in the fire, the shape and look and feel of those are changing, and we're going to talk about today. I'm excited.
Yeah, I think we're all trying to figure out in our own ways how we take advantage of the irons we have in the fire and we don't get overrun by them and we can grow our businesses and help clients, all those sorts of things. So,
And trying to stay sane in the process. Oh my God, Andrew, you
exactly.
just mentioned it.
It's a lot. Yeah. I think it's the most exciting time to be in service management, but there's always, or more than ever, I think, more opportunities to improve than ever. So it's how do we chop that pile of wood, right?
Do you hear that,
Uh,
everybody? It's an exciting time to be in
It is.
service management. Andrew,
I firmly believe it.
it's not kidding.
So as we dive in here, just to give you a quick overview if you're not familiar with Team Dynamics. So we're an AI powered no code service management platform that really focuses on allowing people to do what people do best and leveraging AI and automation to try to do the other stuff and helping people evolve from wherever they are on that continuum to wherever they want to be. So you can think of it as, service management tooling for IT, for non-IT departments, even the project tooling that helps you create, build new services or significantly change an existing service and resource capacity planning, all underlined with a AI layer and an automation integration layer. So that's who we are. So let's dive right in. Let's talk a little bit about the five trends. So the first is AI-driven incident resolution, right? Request resolution. The second would be virtual agents, which are part and parcel to the number one at times. We'll talk about the difference. Automated workflows. So making sure that we have automations in place that can complement our AI and also the manual processes or the workflow processes that we have. And then enterprise service management. So how we can make the whole organization more effective at delivering service. And then talking about IT asset management and how controlling cost, right, and our hardware estate, software estate can really help also reduce burden. So all of this is about helping address the pressures that we see in our market. So there's so much changing about the service desk, and we hear all the time from leaders, either directly through for our customers, potential customers, but also surveys, et cetera, that service volume is applying a tremendous amount of pressure to existing resources. So the amount of service that you're being required to deliver has gone up. The amount of applications you support has gone up. The amount of shadow IT has gone up. You have a more remote workforce, right? You're hiring in different geographies, right? We're not as limited as we used to be in many cases. So how do we support the remote workers? They have an increased need, end user expectations, right? Everyone expects easy service. They want it now. If they don't want to talk to somebody, they don't want to have to talk to somebody. And if they do want to talk to somebody, they want to talk to them now and they want to get a lot of help from them to resolve their issue in one call. Labor market hasn't been helping, so hard sometimes to find really good qualified people, especially for service management and budgetary squeeze. I don't talk to a single customer who says, gosh, we're getting so much more budget. We can add all the headcount in the world that we need to get our jobs done. I never hear that. So it's how do we deal with all these pressures without a linear increase in resources, right? That's what we're talking about. So, Bill, are you seeing this in the space when you're out talking to people? I mean, what's your observation of these pressures?
It's sometimes it's a little overwhelming, right? And Andrew, you really pointed it out so beautifully. I think to level set with everyone, there's no backwards stepping here. There's no going back from all of this. So in a way, everything that we're talking about right now is paramount to understand because the size of the fire hose that you're drinking out of isn't necessarily going to shrink, right? But you want to capture that wealth of information. One of the biggest things I think that we need to talk about specifically is that service volume element. So much more of our business is becoming connected. There are more IP addresses, more connection points. In whatever industry you are, we're seeing a convergence of IT and now OT, operational technologies, which if your server rack, if your HVAC system, if your CNC lathe manufacturing machine is now connected to the internet, you might get a service ticket around it, right? And that's something that we've never seen in the past, right? And all of a sudden, there is a remote workforce that's now managing this thing that used to never have an IP address. The bottom line is the goal of these technologies isn't necessarily to confuse or make things more difficult. And it's going back to what you said, Andrew. How do we get to an easier state of mind? How do we consume these services easier, more simply, right? How do we work with the budget that we have and ultimately be the liberators of time so that people can do
Yeah.
truly valuable things? So everything you mentioned here is so incredibly important, and there's critical places where we need to understand there's a shortage of people and time, right? We know that there's more things connecting. We know that the end user experience is forever digital. That's it. There's no pen and paper going back, right? And we have more people working remotely and there's more constraints around budget. Everything you have on here is amplified by the age of AI, Gen AI, and just how many more requests we're seeing as far as the service desk is concerned.
And one thing I didn't mention about the service volume, and I'm about to pour gas on the fire a little bit, but I don't think I don't think the flames are gonna start scorching us soon, but over the next few years, right? Machines will be asking for support. As agentic AI becomes more reliable and mature, you will be supporting machines. They will have questions, and your service desk has to be able to answer them one way or the other, hopefully in an automated fashion. The good news is, I really think we can be laying the foundations today, usually with existing resources, to be really ready for that and to be able to benefit from it rather than get run over by it. So I think that's the good news. We'll talk about that a little bit. So
Love
the
it.
other thing I forgot to mention, and Bill usually remind me of this, but you didn't today, was this is going to be interactive, right? We're
Oh,
going to ask questions. We're going to do polling. So we have our first poll, and this helps Bill and I get an idea of where you are in your journeys and help us tailor the content a bit. So, what's the biggest challenge facing your service desk? Is it the volume? Is it expectations? Is it remote workforce? Right now, there's a bunch of ones that are equal. Let's see if this pans out here.
I never get this one right, Andrew. I always try and
Well,
guess.
let's give you another chance. What do you
I
think the top category is going to be?
So going back, I actually really appreciate you putting on the Bill Clayton hat. Yeah, we do like an interactive audience. And if you do have a question or comment or concern, Andrew and I have done this so many times that we will keep an eye on the chat, on the Q&A. So just stop us, ask us a question. We might pull you aside and go ahead and answer that. Okay, I want to hear your guess as well, but I'm going to go first. I
Okay.
think, and this is just strictly from what I've seen in the industry for some of the folks that we've been working with. I think it's service volume. I think the amount of requests that we're seeing that's taking up the time of administrative staff is insane. Holly, I see that challenge accepted, interactive. I love that already. Thank you for the comment and bring the questions. I think that's awesome. Andrew,
Mhm.
what do you? I think it's just the volume of stuff coming in is really hard to funnel right now.
Well, I have the benefit of actually seeing what the answers are, so I can't guess anymore. Like my brain is not capable of now making a guess because I see the actual data. I don't have that capability. So let me go ahead and share it. The number one is user expectations and then budgetary pressure. So users are expecting service when they want it, how they want it, where they want it. They want it very quickly. So that's not surprising in budgetary squeeze. I think that's become more important. A year ago when we were asking this question, that was a smaller percentage. So I think we're all feeling that a little bit, at least across our customer base.
Do you think it's because there's more Gen Zs and millennials in the workforce? They're like, I'm texting you right away. You better give me an answer right now.
I think it's actually disillusioned, frustrated Gen Xers because no one talks about them anymore. I think that's what it is. That's not scientific. That's just,
Brilliant.
that's my
Brilliant
guess.
answer.
So
Brilliant.
anyway, um, what are these five trends, right? The first is again AI driven ticket resolution. Second, virtual service agents pairing with automation. So figuring out how do we not only answer questions, but how do we go do stuff, right? How do we automate more of our workflows? And ITAM partnered up and enterprise service management. So if we think about these a couple areas for AI, the ticket volume, the resolution time, and satisfaction, I think we can do a great job of resolving this. So we have a breadth of AI products, and what we're seeing was counter, the results we're seeing were counter to our initial assumptions. What we assumed, so when we introduced AI virtual service agents with automation, et cetera, that that A, it would reduce burden, but B, we would see a neutral or slightly negative effect on customer satisfaction. Well, the first part of that came true. The second, we saw an increase in customer satisfaction because if it was a simple question or a question that they thought should be answered without a human being involved, they were more satisfied with it, right? That was really interesting. The other thing that we saw is that the expectation when I need help is when I need a person, I want them to be able to spend the time with me to fix it.
Mhm.
So essentially what we saw are seeing is this traditional service delivery model, given all those pressures we talked about with the arrows going like this, um, it's breaking and it's hard to keep our heads above water. We see it all the time. So what are we seeing, right? With the virtual service agents, we're seeing anywhere from 30 to 70% of tickets deflected before they even get to the desk. So that's a big deal. So if you can do back of the napkin math, say, okay, well, how many requests do we field in a given month? What if I could cut that 30 to 70%, right? What would that allow my people to spend time doing? Would that allow them to improve our knowledge base? Would that allow them to work on their queue and get that MTTR to drive down? That's one piece of it. The second piece, which is really interesting, we have a AI service assistant, which basically is facing for the technicians, the tools the technicians use to take advantage of all of our knowledge and our ticket history to more quickly answer questions and also to create knowledge base articles using AI rather than having to form them to therefore create more self-service content, better answers for the conversational AI or virtual service agent. And what we're seeing there is a 40 to 90% reduction in the time it takes to respond on average. That's meaningful. So you can also probably do the back of the napkin math there is what would I do with that time? So really, really powerful results, real value from AI. I think the good news, Bill, for us is that in many cases you're reading about AI not fulfilling its promise. They're not seeing the ROI from it. I think the great news for anyone who's a service management practitioner is there are very, very clear use cases where AI and automation provide tremendous return on investment that you can demonstrate. I mean, Bill, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh my gosh, we live in a world that's just discovered oil but hasn't invented the internal combustion engine. All this wonderful raw material, and we are just starting to figure out what to do with it. My biggest recommendation, Andrew, you nailed it, is don't build an elephant on a unicycle. AI, and you, by the way, we're going to have full of fun sayings. And also separately, I do apologize to some of the Gen Xers because clearly the chat window lit up after I said that. So sorry, not sorry. Here, you can guys can laugh at me. I'm known as a geriatric millennial. I don't know why they have to call me that. They should call me an older millennial. So listen, it's fine. It's fine. Right? We're all experienced human beings here. It's wonderful. So back to your question. I think we're now starting to figure out genuinely what we can do with these technologies. And the most important, where,
Mhm.
where we've had success in our organization in creating agentic AI for like the hardest industries, manufacturing, financial services, is, and this is for you, everybody listening, this is your gold nugget. Strive for a metric. Don't build AI around a nice to have, build it around a need to have. And I'm just going to give you a really specific example. You talked about ticket volumes, right? And the
Mhm.
expanse that we've seen as far as how much stuff is coming in. What you don't understand is that we've shifted in how we interact with data. This type of AI that Andrew's talking about, these aren't answer engines like Google used to be. These are decision engines, right? They help you make better decisions instead of just giving you a blue link and saying, good luck to you, champ. They're literally
Mhm.
guiding you in this process. And we start talk about all these new connected systems. Think about one very simple thing. It's called the ticket tax. That's it. There's nothing else. There's no sugarcoating it. Every unresolved, delayed, postponed ticket is a tax on productivity across the entire business. And as
Yep.
more stuff gets connected, that 40 to 90% becomes critical. That 4 to 7 minutes becomes absolutely critical. And the suggestions that are truly useful, the decisions that are improved now with that 80% plus rate, that's that's the power of AI. That's when you see that needle move. It's not a nice to have anymore. It's a need part of your business. So that's, I'll get off my soapbox.
It's interesting, and I just got up on the chat. I am squarely a Gen Xer, and Bill, I thought you were a Gen Xer. You're Gen Xer in spirit, the way you behave.
Oh,
And I love all the comments in there. It's awesome. So we're gonna move on to another poll, right? Again, to get a handle on where people are. So do you have virtual agents? You know what formerly called chatbots, then conversational AI tools, now it's virtual service agents. Do you have these yet? And where in your journey are you?
I'm sorry. I'm still smiling at some of these comments.
Oh, they're great.
they're pretty, they're pretty funny. I'm sorry your knees hurt.
They're great. Now, the reason I thought about that because I just read this big article about how retailers are ignoring Gen X. Like, no one's making products for Gen X or like the shopping experience. There's this whole article about how this demographic is somehow been ignored.
We've got the forgotten generation, right? And we should take care of our Gen Xers. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, that's what I thought. All right, let's see here. All right, so it looks like people are planning to launch virtual service agents, and then there's a fair contingent saying, "Hey, we don't have plans yet." I understand it. I think what has changed in the last 24 months is the technology. It has become far easier to stand up a virtual service agent that actually adds value than it used to be. So I'll give you an example. You used to have to go in and anticipate what the questions were going to be, build in different ways to someone might ask that question, and the AI would try to interpret what somebody says and match it to one of those variants of some question, and then you had to point it to where it goes. What we're seeing is if you think about a virtual service agent as a use at the beginning, a useful helper who just stands at like the person at Disney World who's like, I can help you, and they just direct you. And if they don't know, they'll point you on the right way to find that answer. So phase one is typically get value out of your existing knowledge, right? Figure out where your existing knowledge is, whether that's in a knowledge base or out on your website or government sites if you're regulated. Figure out how to answer the basic question, right? You look at your ticket data and say, hey, 80% of our questions come from these 20 categories. Find some basic content there. Now, the key is what we've seen is fail over quickly. If it doesn't know, don't screw around, don't set it up so it keeps asking more questions. Just have it help create a ticket or hand it off to a live person for chat. Now, from there, you can start looking at, okay, what are the low-hanging fruit automations, which we'll talk about, and we'll talk about some of the results. But the stand up of one of these things is so much easier than it used to be to start deflecting tickets. As long as you don't allow it to frustrate a user because it mucks about before getting them onto something that helps them. That's the key. So to give you an idea here, there we go. This is a customer, Bowden, and they're deflecting 60+% of their requests. That's a major shift in how they operate their service desk. And I asked the individual who leads this, like, tell me about the results. He said customer sat's way up, but more importantly, internal team member sat's way up because they're no longer doing the things that they were just clicking a mouse and having to dig around in systems to figure something out or dig around in the knowledge base how to figure something out. And so it gives them more time to spend with customers who really need it. Complex queries or that person, hey, something's wrong. I can't really describe it. I don't know. No AI is going to help fix that, right? That requires a person today. So it allows them to do that more. And what was the other thing I wanted to point out here is they obviously have students as a huge contingent, and they had to figure out a way, how do we get students using this? So they asked, they like, what are the questions that you would like answers to immediately? Bowdoin is well known for the quality of their dining halls. Strangely enough, a lot of people don't know that, but it's one of the perks. And they wanted to know what was for lunch at the different dining halls. And so they built that in so it uses automation to reach into the system where the menus are and produce that. And it can give them directions to those dining halls if they need them. So it started there. And so then they started asking other questions, right? They were like, well, okay, it can do that. How do I get from here to here? I'm a new student, right? I don't know where I'm going. How do I get to this building? It can tell them. Or now they're doing things like balance inquiries. Hey, what's my balance on my student card? What's my print balance? And it'll pull that back. Do you want to add more credit? So they've started with things that added value, and now they're adding more because people in the organization trust it. So that's just an example. I'll share some concrete examples of these AI plus automation scenarios that add a lot of value. And I'm sure you can think about them in your context, right? The things that take time for somebody just to click a mouse that your customers don't want to wait on and your team members don't want to do, right? That's the best place to start. Name changes, right? Equipment replacement. That, hey, can I get a new laptop? Oh gosh, I have to go in, I have to find an asset record, I have to check the replacement. If they can do it, then I have to say, okay, what would you like? You can automate that, right? Whole process. Even with an approval, department approval, that can be automated too. Think about those things that remove the toil and the frustration from work. PTO balances. Hey, how much PTO do I have left? I want to put a PTO day in, right? I don't want a knowledge base article that tells me how to sign into ADP and go find that out there. I just want to know. And what's really important, if you haven't caught it already, is authentication, knowing who you're talking to. Clearly, you can have public facing conversational AI virtual service agents, but knowing who the person is opens an entire world of possibilities. Password resets, that's one of the heaviest. Software requests, can I get access to X, Y, or Z? Another one that we see, recent Gartner, it aligns with the recent Gartner piece of research that I read. 8% of all requests to the help desk are to ask about the status of another request. How much of a waste of time is that for your team? Hey, where's my ticket? They should really quickly be able to get an AI generated synopsis of what's going on with that, right away. So figure out how to chip away at those things matter. Now, the next case that I want to talk about, this client was reducing, saw a 20% reduction in very specific types of questions. So they checking for assets was number one, right? Hey, what's assigned to me? And it can retrieve that information. Or what assets are in a specific classroom as a professor. I want to know that. It can retrieve that. Getting access to software. So for example, Adobe. Hey, I need access to Adobe. It can quickly check the permissioning. It can see if you're able to do that without approval and actually grant you that access in an automated fashion. If they don't have access or need approval, it can route that as well. Password resets another thing, or that they also do the update and view tickets. So hey, show me the status of this thing. Wi-Fi troubleshooting. There's a bunch of things they go through that are automated. Now, I keep going back to automation because it's foundational to getting good ROI from AI.
Mhm.
AI that can pull from your knowledge base or websites and answer questions is valuable. Don't get me wrong, that's very valuable. When it can reach out into another system like your HRIS and pull an answer or go into HRIS and take action is where you really start to get a huge, huge boost in ROI. So, another poll, if you could wave a wand and automate something, it says automate anything. We're only giving you a handful of choices. So, I'm going to say automate anything on the list that we provided. What would it be? Okay. So,
I'm looking forward to this one.
yeah, and Bill, can you comment a little bit about what I would call um, content-based content-based answer retrieval versus actually
Yeah.
pulling data or generating data from systems and taking action? Like, what are you seeing out there? I mean, from an ROI perspective, what are your thoughts on that?
It's the responses that we're getting today from these engines are truly contextual. And that's meaningful, right? You and I, and while those polls are coming in, right? We've been trained to interact with data in a very specific manner, right? Andrew Graff goes to his here's a fun Gen X mention. Goes to his favorite search engine. It could be Alta Vista. It could be Ask Jeeves. I actually made that joke one time in front of high school students. They're like, "What's an Ask Jeeves? Is this guy asking his butler for directions?" But in
Yeah.
the past, Andrew would go ask a question. You'd get a blue link, right? That's your now job to go click on the right link and go find your solution. Today,
Mhm.
these are truly contextual responses with what you can do. Now, you talked about virtual agents are extraordinary. And the one thing, Andrew, that I really want to make sure everybody understands here, these are now built on generative AI solutions, which means they're not static, which means they learn about you, your business, they continuously improve, and they have more of those natural types of conversations. I'll give you a really fun little example. We built a small little HR agent for a bank in Nebraska, and it was strictly because so many people were remote and they were just asking how much PTO do I have left. And one of the things was when a person asked, I need to take this PTO off. Can I PTO day off? Can I go request? The request was sent. Then a couple of weeks later, he asked it again, and the agent said, "Oh, we hope you enjoyed your time off. Hopefully, it was wonderful. What else can I help you with?" Like it remembered that you took some of this time off. The bottom line is that I think a chatbot without automation is just a fancy FAQ, right? And that's where you said, like, when you have this power where 60% of these help desk interactions quietly disappear. And I thought that was a powerful statement. So yeah, these technologies are truly making a difference. You just get over the hump and just gotta try it. Just gotta try
Yep.
it out.
Well, let's look at the results here. So runaway onboarding, offboarding. That is not surprising to me because that involves so many different moving parts and it's uniformly frustrating for everyone. And we see that quite a bit in automation of that using conversational AI technologies as well. So really, really interesting. We go ahead and close this down. All right. So when we talk about automation, right, clearly the goal is to reduce the time it takes from a need to fulfillment. That's typically the goal. And we ran a study with Information Week, and it's probably 1,500 different organizations across lots of industries. And what was fascinating was they found that over 58% of those organizations, each of their team members in service was spending 2 to 3 months a year on things that could be automated. That is a staggering amount of time. And it's doing things like working on what you see there in that list of automate the toil. And these are very well within reach, right? To think about automating. And I'm not a let's automate everything. AI is the answer to everything person. I'm just not, right? I think that AI should enable humans to do what they do best and dramatically reduce the frustration of both providing and consuming service, right? That's it. So the questions I often ask is someone says, "Hey, should we think about AI or automation for this?" I think, okay, does it does it decrease the time it takes to deliver service? Yes or no? Okay. Is it such a thing that your consumer would rather get an answer quickly from and not have to talk to somebody? Two, does it dramatically reduce risk of any sort, right? The risk of, human error, does it make our team happier? Like, will our team enjoy getting this off their plate, right? Does it reduce costs in a meaningful way? You can ask those questions to determine, like, yeah, okay, yeah, maybe we should look at automating this, or no, no, we shouldn't, right? We shouldn't do that yet. Our customers aren't ready for it, et cetera. So I think those are some questions you can ask yourself. The other really startling fact here was that 89% said that all that work on that toil list contributed to attrition, people leaving.
Wow.
So I don't know about your organization, but it it's really frustrating to lose somebody good because it's hard to retrain in a lot of cases. AI assistants can make that better because it's pulling from your knowledge of your past requests, all your knowledge to help answer, but it doesn't reduce that pain. You want to keep your good people and don't want them doing things that they hate doing. So I think another way to look at this, if you think about all the different systems in your ecosystem where either information resides that you need to answer a question, or the action to fulfill a request resides in that system. Think about that ecosystem out there. The tooling to be able to reach into those systems is incredibly, incredibly important. You know, another Gartner piece of research that came out in October said that, 80% of organizations by 2028 will be using an integration automation platform alongside AI, because without it, AI is not nearly as valuable. So that's just a visual to put in your head. I see an interesting comment in the chat. Holly said, we talked about budgetary constraints and the request for a new laptop or whatever. And the answer was always no. We're going back to stone tablets and chisels. So I like that a lot. And then there's another comment about saying, hey, AI still needs lots of configuration, setup. In certain use cases, it absolutely does, right? AI. I heard a great comment was, AI is just like a team member, right? It needs instruction. It will make mistakes, right? The expectation that AI is going to get it right every time, being trained on being trained on the human behavior that's woven throughout all the content it's absorbed is an unreasonable expectation. But if you have proper expectations, it can be used effectively. And the other thing that I would say is that the barrier to entry on new AI capabilities keeps going down, right? So as I mentioned before, retrieval augmented generation, setting up a useful conversational AI or virtual service agent took a lot of time, right? It takes a lot less time now, and you will see that continue. And the other thing you're seeing is a lot of BS out there. There's a lot of AI that's being marketed that's not AI, or it doesn't work well. So vendors are out there, we see it all the time, throwing out features that don't work, right? They demo well, and I think it's tainting the real good use cases for AI, right? I was at a big conference last week and a bunch of analysts, and they're thinking it's going to be 7 to 10 years before truly agentic AI starts to hit its stride. 7 years, right? Before you have agents regularly communicating autonomously with other agents and adding value. But that doesn't mean that the preparation should be there. So if you think about, I want you to weigh in on this, Bill. If you think about all of where data resides, valuable data out in those systems, or the actions that need to be taken, building that tooling today not only can help you get better benefit from the AI tooling, the virtual service agents, right, the technician assistants, but when agentic AI starts to mature, those are going to be the tools that agentic AI is going to use to do things. So you will be in much better position to benefit from it.
I would agree with that, Andrew. I think what we're seeing now in terms of artificial intelligence, this new iteration of it, it's an entire growth in a mindset that we need to experience, right? We're seeing AI reduce, response times, not by minutes or even hours, right? We're seeing it remove entire steps, right? And
Mhm.
remarkably, what we found is that the most valuable part about artificial intelligence, and while yes, getting into an answer is important, it's a system that actually knows what to do next, right? That's really meaningful and ultimately very special, right? And I think I'm going to change the paradigm here a little bit. I think the key metric to watch is not the number of tickets closed, but the number of tickets that were never created,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
that is just such a foundational shift in how we have to approach these things. But the integrative part of it, listen, we've built systems in my organization that's pulling data from everything from IBM AS400s, and I firmly believe at the end of the world, it's going to be cockroaches and IBM AS400s that survive because those
Mhm.
things are forever, period.
That's a strong prediction.
But it's, I think they're gonna last a while. But
Yeah.
the reality situation is you're absolutely right. Our ability to integrate data points and then automate with AI and actually just improve
Mhm.
that people process is paramount. And I love everybody, the comments that we're getting out there, stone tablets and chisels, right? There's really no moving back in terms of how we leverage these systems, and we're only going to be able to move forward. But there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt that we have to overcome and
Mhm.
understand that these systems are built to support people. Now, Whenever humanity discovers anything new, our first reaction is, can we let it on fire? Now, I'm being facetious because the equivalent of that is ChatGPT. Now, obviously, per Andrew, that's not the answer to everything, right? AI is agentic. AI is a natural part of the environment. It lives in your data stream. And the best types of deployments are potentially ones that are just work. The user may not even know that AI is doing its thing. It just knows that there was never an issue to begin with, right? So we're seeing a deeper integration into these systems, and I firmly believe, I don't think it's going to be 7 years. This market is broken down into two very clear buckets. 80% of it right now is used to be training the next foundational model, and 20% is inference. I think in the next 36 months, it's going to flip on its head because all these billions of dollars that we're putting in capital and infrastructure, eventually the investors are going to be like, hey, how does this make money? Where does this
Yeah.
actually impact your business? And so we're going to be seeing those very AI agents, that very inference, that more core approach to specific business problems in terms of what artificial intelligence is capable of doing. I don't think it's going to be 7 years, man. I think it's going to
Well,
be.
I think the context was not at the beginning of the adoption curve, right? It's like does when does agentic AI really start to penetrate the enterprise in a meaningful way across industries, across lots of different maturities? And so they think it's going to be a while. I don't know if it's going to be that long. The other thing I would point to is one slight change uh, I'd make to what you said is yes, it's important that you measure tickets avoided, but my suggestion is for anyone doing this, create a ticket that is closed, that captures it, because you want to be able to start showing the value created, right? So you want to say, look, here is, a year ago, here's how many passwords resets that technicians handle. Look how many it is today. Look how many that our AI and automation is handling. So being able to tell that story is incredibly powerful, can help build some budgetary momentum. Another really good thing came, Jim made a great comment. Jim said, hey, he was wondering that if you're pulling historic data to answer questions, what happens when the answer changes, right? What happens if you upgrade that service? This is something that we actually had to figure out because it became clear, and so think about your training. What we've done in our implementation of this is you decide to retrain on a period of time, and it's a rolling window. So you might say, look, I just want to train on the past 3 months of responses. So each month it lops off another month and advances. You can change that window, but it should be keeping up with the changes in your technology. Or if it was something significant, you might change in our world what we call a knowledge set. So you might say, look, I've dramatically changed something. So I'm just going to build a new knowledge set. I'm going to throw out the old one and build a new one, and that's all automated. That's something, hey, you point it and say like, this is what I want you to look at now, and then it will refresh it on its own. It's a really, really important point because Jim is absolutely right that your world changes, the answers change, but you don't want to have to go manually think about it. You want to be able to put as much as you can on autopilot. So when the new service gets introduced, those new answers, right, will be in your ticket history. Or you can decide, hey, I'm going to throw out the old training and train a new one. So this is something we had to think about a lot. I mean, our business is really focused on organizations that either have or aspire to have complex processes supported, but they don't have the budget for 4 full-time people or 7 figures a year on licensing. That's where we do the best. I think we provide the best mix of capability and ease of ownership in the market, period. So we're constantly trying to figure out like, hey, how do we make great capabilities easy to use? And these are some of the things that you have to think about and that come out of your customer base. So really, really fascinating. So shifting gears a little bit, I do want to talk about enterprise service management. So enterprise service management is essentially applying service management practices to groups outside of IT. IT is actually included. It's kind of the upper umbrella, but just for ease of example, think about all the other groups that provide service that are using email or a tool that you have to support that you now have to collaborate with. And so you have to figure out how do I track something in their system that I'm tracking in my system? How do we bridge that gap? I need to hand something to them to work on, or vice versa. Becomes very messy. So we're seeing a lot of benefit of providing the same type of tooling for non-IT groups. And what we've also found is IT, by being able to help these organizations set up these different applications and processes, they become more valuable in the eye of their stakeholders. That's really powerful. Now, the key thing that we found here as well is that each department needs to be able to manage their own instance. If IT has to do it, it's a major drag because who in this audience is looking for another thing to maintain and fully support? That business model does not work for most of our clients, right? Some, fine, but most of the time, if accounting wants to add a field to a form or change a workflow, they just want them to be able to do that, right? They don't want to have to involve IT at all. IT doesn't want to deal with it. So that's really critical. So just to take a poll here, where are you on your enterprise service management journey? How many different groups are supported or using your tooling?
I feel like this question evolves, Andrew, every single time we've asked it. We've been doing this webinar for a good minute or two, and I feel like this number has been growing every single time. And I
Yeah,
think that's great.
absolutely.
I think that's great.
Well, you're seeing the complexion change. You look at the budgetary line item, right? Leapt ahead into second place. That was not the case, 6 months ago, 8 months ago. So that's really, really fascinating. Okay, so let's see here. So it looks like we have most people are on their journey, on their way, right? I think our biggest customer has 125 different departments, and that's extreme, but it's common to see five or six, for an organization. So it seems like we have people on that continuum. And another thing to think about from an AI perspective is, can you use a virtual service agent that knows these different departments, right? So can you say, hey, I want one that knows HR, I want one that knows marketing, facilities, and I don't want it to get confused about IT things. You should be able to do that. That absolutely. And you can also set it up too, so that if you said you said, look, if somebody is talking to an AI service agent and then they flip to something facilities, like, hey, I need a new laptop. Can I get one? Yeah, you can get one. You have these options, this Lenovo, T whatever it is now, T1 million. Um, and then they move on and say, hey, my office is hot. Like you can say, well, switch context. Don't make them go someplace else. Yet facilities maintains their own knowledge and IT maintains their own knowledge. These are the types of things under the covers that start to matter when it comes to ease of ownership. So when you think about enterprise service management, a couple of things that we find to be really important. Number one, that they can spin up their service, we call it an application and processes without coding, right? No coding, no scripting. A smart person who's used the internet and software before should be able to work on these. Having the ability to support multiple portals, meaning if marketing has their own knowledge base, let them keep it, yet let it participate in a global knowledge base. We found that culturally, trying to get somebody to let go of something they had, if HR has a knowledge base, let them have a knowledge base, right? Get that out of the way, yet still you can have it in a global knowledge base. Automation integration, absolutely critical in these other spaces. All the reasons why answering questions requires static content, reaching into other systems to get answers or reaching into other systems to take action remain in these other departments too. So having a foundation for those is really, really important, we believe. And then if you think about that time to value, it's how quickly can we stand these things up? How quickly can we change it for our business? So if you think about a new opportunity to automate something, the fact that you don't have to write code. Now, automation integration, I will be very clear, it takes a technical mindset. Usually, our best automation, AI and automation engineers are at least a sysadmin, or they worked on your service desk and they're inquisitive. They're the people who, to solve a problem, Before anyone was building their own personal agents, they were doing it, or they taught themselves a little PowerShell to do something on their own. And they're the ones saying, hey, where's my career going? I really like this. Can I get promoted? You don't have anywhere to put them and you want to keep them, that's the person you need to build your foundations for you to be able to get great ROI from AI integration and automation. That you will absolutely soar with something like that because as soon as you have a business problem, it doesn't require coding. You can quickly prototype, boom, 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 test it, change it, put it out there, right? That's how you transform quickly. And that faster time to value is becoming more important than ever. So the other thing that happens with enterprise service management is that you now have visibility across resources in the organization so that when it comes to prioritizing those big initiatives, you have a global view to say, look, here's everything I have going on. Here's the resources it's consuming across these departments. Can we get this new proposed work done? Or when could we get it done? Or what do we have to stop? Resource capacity planning is a big deal. And then lastly, I wanted to mention the IT asset management component. So what we've been talking about so far is how do we deliver the right services at in a way that a customer likes, where it increases their satisfaction, it reduces the cost of delivering service, and removes the frustration for the people providing the service and receiving the service. How do we do that? IT asset management's a little different, right? IT asset management is all about knowing what we have, whether it's being used, and how do we reconcile the gaps between those? How do we drive down costs? The average overspend on software is 30%. If you're spending $1 million, you're wasting $300,000 a year. That's the average. How do we figure that out? How do we figure out that someone has two laptops and one of them isn't ever used, is just sitting on their desk and we're paying for it, right? We're paying for support. How do we figure that out? Especially with cloud software, right? What's being used out there? Has somebody bought a system that we already have in three other departments on their credit card and they shouldn't be using it, right? Is someone using DeepSeek? How much are we paying for all this stuff? And then if somebody shouldn't be using DeepSeek, how do we prevent them from doing that? This is all IT asset management. And so that's the other partner in this to help drive down the cost of service and make sure we're spending money appropriately. So I think that's a really, really critical component. So now we're going to actually walk through, my colleague Alicia is going to walk through a demo. We've talked about a lot of concepts, the concept of using AI and automation, the concept of service management, and the concept of AI assisting a technician. We've talked about how different departments can use service management tools as well. So I want to put a visual on it. And the purpose here isn't a pitch for Team Dynamics. You're going to see the Team Dynamics product. But the purpose is to give those visual learners something to look at, to think about, okay, in our inventory of tooling, could we do this? I mean, to me, that's the first thing we always do is say, okay, hey, can I do this with what I have today or not? Or do I need to switch? So hopefully it gives you some of those ideas. So Alicia, I'm going to hand this over to you. Step back, and this is probably going to be everyone's favorite part of the the webinar.
This is where I geek out. Love it.
All right, so with that, I will share my screen. You can stop sharing, Andrew. Okay, perfect. All right, so you should be able to see that now. So for today, we're going to start in our end user portal. You can see how your end users can request that help from your team, how you can make that process really efficient for them using that AI and automation there. Then we're going to switch over to the team member side and see how, again, that AI and automation can transform that technician workflow. And then way at the end, we'll look at how multiple teams can utilize Team Dynamics. So within here, like I said, we're in the portal. This is where your end users can get that information, some how-to documentation, submit requests. But right here, we're looking at our virtual service agent. So right away when this pops up, we're seeing an automation already. So we're looking up any outages that we're currently experiencing and immediately notifying our end user. Now, maybe as an end user, I need access to something. So I'm going to put in access request here. And now what it's going to do is it's going to ask me, hey, we're looking at Active Directory groups. What group would you like to be added to? Maybe I need to be added to that human resources group. Now, if this was something that didn't require approval, we could fully automate that process and just give them access on the spot. However, this is a sensitive group, so we want to make sure that we get that proper approval. And so here it's saying, hey, requires an approval. Do you want to place a request for that access? So here I will respond saying yes, and then that's going to go create a ticket for me. And here it has already responded saying, all right, here's your ticket. You'll be notified once you've been added to that group. So we're going to take another look at that ticket in just a little bit. So from there, let's take it up a notch. So if I say something like, when can I get a new phone? So with this one, you'll see that I'm already logged in. It knows who I am, so it can truly personalize those answers for me. So what it's going to do is look up my profile, look through those assets that I have, find my phone, and then it's going to respond accordingly. So here it's saying that I'm not eligible for replacement until next year, but if I was eligible, it could go create a ticket for IT to go process that upgrade for me. So, it can certainly integrate with different things within team dynamics, but what else? So, really, the possibilities are endless with this. You are in no way limited to just our system. So, think about all those other systems that your organization uses. So, I can say something here like, what's my PTO balance? So with that, our virtual service agents, they can pull from those other systems that you have to pull in, everything into one place for those end users. So here it has done that. It's going to tell me, hey, here's your PTO balance. So with that, and now I want to switch over to that team member perspective. So first thing that I want to take a look at here is, um, one second. Okay, so within here, I'm going to pull in this ticket here, and we're going to take a look at that AI Service Assist. And so this is going to do a few different things for us. So with this ticket, maybe this came in from email or from like a generic report an issue link. So like I said, that AI Service Assist is going to do a few things to help us. And so first off, if I come in to edit this ticket, you're going to see that I've got these field suggestions. And so this is going to help those technicians by analyzing ticket content, suggesting things like the correct incident type, the urgency, the priority. It's going to give us those different suggestions. And really, what that's going to end up looking like is your fields are going to be more accurate, leading to that better reporting in the long run. And then also with that, we've got our agent assist over here. So that's going to provide really those troubleshooting steps based on that ticket context. And so this is going to give you a suggested response. And then it's also going to show you different knowledge base articles, those similar tickets, and you'll be able to dig into those and see some of that related content. And so, like Andrew said, really with that, what we're seeing in the market is 40 to 90% faster response times with that ticket assist agent. And then lastly here, Andrew and Bill had talked about ESM. So what does that look like? So here I am signed in as somebody that really has access to everything. So I've got a few different what we call ticketing applications here. So every department can have their own application or think of like a bucket of tickets. And so here we can see that we've got human resources. They've got cases and HR requests. Then we've got marketing where they have things like media and website services, whereas facilities has work orders and custodial services. And so, really, with that, you can set up the nomenclature that works best for each department. And each of these different applications can also have different statuses, forms, workflows, automations. It really gives each department a lot of flexibility in how they need it set up and how they want it to work. And so, with that, today we've seen how you can automate the process for your end users as well as for your technicians, and how to use AI to make your technicians' jobs easier and more efficient. And then, lastly, we looked at how multiple departments can utilize team dynamics while maintaining that control in how they want to work. So, with that, I will turn it back over to Andrew and Bill.
Thanks, Alicia. I really appreciate it. So I've been watching the chat, which has been great, by the way. So I wanted to address a few things, and there was a question. Someone was asking about let me pull this back up. There we go. So someone said, "Hey, I'm interested in identifying that I had 20 tickets last month that are similar, and then maybe I want to add a response to the virtual agent." This is actually a use case that we've had to consider pretty heavily, and there's really a couple ways to do that. I think there's trending analysis to see, if you're seeing for the identification of a potential event or problem or major incident. And then there's also the concept of scanning for knowledge opportunities. And those are really different technologies to do that. And so the way we're addressing the knowledge gaps is twofold. In that assistant that Alicia showed you, you go to close a ticket, you can use AI to generate a knowledge-based article draft based upon your templates. One of the biggest barriers we've found in KCS is the time it takes to transform a response to a request into a knowledge-based article. We're trying to remove that. So the idea is that that starts the flywheel a little bit of creating more content. The second is looking across old tickets that do not have knowledge associated, cross-referencing those with a knowledge base and identifying opportunities, and then sourcing information for a draft knowledge base article to close those gaps. So that is a technology that we're working on to try to figure out. And then the trending side of it as well. So, hey, do we potentially have a major incident? Let's try to feed that back into our observability and monitoring platform to determine if with that information, it can determine whether we're actually having one or not, right? So, and the observability and monitoring platform should be the leading tip of that spear, but it isn't always, right? The other thing that I think is important is Alicia showed you a chatbot. That is important. It's great. But a lot of clients we see, it's Teams or Slack. It's where are people collaborating, communicating. So ours is multi-channel. It's hard to do that in a short demo, but go ahead and think about where do I meet somebody there. The other big area where AI can be really effective is triage. So setting up the ability to say, okay, based upon let's say you still have an email queue. Based upon these, whose group did they end up in? What workflows did they end up with? What were the priorities, et cetera? And trying to reduce triage dramatically. That's another great use case to save time. So there was a question too about someone's in a highly regulated industry, and there's concern in management about personal identifiable information and AI. So the first thing I would suggest is you want to make sure whoever you're dealing with from an AI perspective guarantees that they are not using any data in your system to train the mothership. That is not going into the collective hive mind of their LLM or other tooling. And so for our AI tooling, we use tooling available on the Azure platform because Microsoft, in our opinion, has the strongest business terms behind their AI. And so we felt most confident taking that tooling forward to our customers because they guarantee they're not going to use your data to train their LLMs, right? You get to benefit from the LLM, but it's not going back in there. The second thing that we've seen, that's probably the most important, by the way, that your data is your data and it's not being shared in any which way, form, and could never leak out into an environment that's not yours. The other thing is, I would say, is you can use automation tooling if you really want to. And when a ticket comes in, say somebody emails in their social security number and their bank account number and the password, right? Using AI to strip that out on the inbound. So defining an automation and defining, hey, what am I looking for here? And let's get rid of that and put a placeholder in its place. So there's some things you can do there. So we can certainly talk about that more. Reach out to us, and we certainly have some experience with that. Um, so Bill, we are down to the last minute. I know we didn't get to every question, but do you want to share any closing thoughts?
I love these questions that came in, and
Me too.
clearly we struck a nerve with the Gen X crowd. And please know that you're still our favorite, and we appreciate you. And thank you for all the lovely discourse that we had on the chat window.
Yeah.
I actually saw people talking amongst each other, which was wonderful. And Alicia, thank you for the demo. I think the big thought that I've got for you is vision without execution is just hallucination, and that's not something we want our AI doing or your business. Find
Mhm.
a gold nugget, test this stuff out. It's not scary, but these systems make all the difference and all the change. And regarding that, PII compliance question, you can find partners that will 100% secure your data,
Yep.
comply with your regulations, and make sure that none of your information is used to train any sort of
Yep.
foundational model. Great point. But otherwise, just be fearlessly curious about these technologies and try it out.
Yep. And I want to thank everybody and thank you, Bill and Alicia. And if you have more questions about anything we talked about, you can definitely go to teamdynamics.com, reach out to us. Happy to have a conversation. If you are an existing customer, you can reach out to your customer success rep as well. So we will do this again. But great as always. And everyone have a great holiday season.